Tampa Bay's business address is Money Talk 1010 AM and available on HD at 99.5 HD2. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Money Talk 1010 AM, Tampa Bay's business address.
The views and opinions expressed on the following show are those of Morgan Streetman and are not those of Beasley Media Group, this station, its management, or other hosts or advertisers. On Money Talk 1010 AM, it's the Morgan Streetman Show. Morgan and Roxanne Wilder are discussing everything from world, national, and local issues to information from the unknown. And since Morgan's an attorney, there will probably be a little something from the law. Now, here are Morgan Streetman and Roxanne Wilder.
Well, hello there, Morgan. So good to have you in the building. So when we need you on the Sarge and Mason show, you can jump right in.
Hey, that was pretty fun when no music started at the end, and we all just stood around looking at each other for a second and thought, somebody better start talking here.
I don't know what happened to that network. I went back in engineering, and it all looked good back there.
Yeah. Well, they're probably all gone to lunch now.
I haven't seen them yet today.
Well, they've been here since like 4. Those engineers, they work hard.
Yes, they do.
Get here early, make sure everything goes real smooth over on Q105 and all the other big stations, and on Money Talk as well. Because we even, how was the show this morning, Pat? Pretty good, huh?
It's a great Monday show.
Yeah, rights and repairs.
It's easy breezy.
Oh.
Because I gotta give some props out right now to Collision Tech, by the way.
Right.
I meant to do it last week because I picked up my truck from them, and they did a fantastic job. So I just want to say
they're probably the best in the Bay Area.
They are probably the finest in the Bay Area, and I'm so happy that when I had a little bit of a fender bender, I took my car to them to get it fixed because they gave it back to me looking almost new. And I mean, it was just everybody that's seen it has just commented on what a fantastic.
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah,
Yes.
Janet over there. If you got a car issue, you got a fender bender or some body shop issue, give Janet a call over at Collision Tech. She'll take great care of you.
Collision Tech is the one that also took care of my car after I hit that deer.
That's right. That's right.
Or the deer hit me, really.
And they made it look, new.
Brand new.
Yeah. They do a fantastic. They're the best. They're the best. So, one of the things we've been covering lately, pretty much every week we've been trying to mention this just because I don't want it to fall off of people's radar, and that is the Tommy Robinson story, And if you remember, Tommy Robinson's a British guy who was arrested in May outside of a courthouse in Leeds, England, for basically filming and bringing publicity to these grooming gang trials that they have in the UK, which is about basically child molestation and child abuse. By largely Muslims, but they have a huge problem, with just the regular old British people too in the UK. But these grooming gangs in particular seem to be largely focused in the Muslim community. And I guess basically what they do is they target the non-Muslim children because under the Quran, that's considered to be, not sinful to do bad things to infidels and their children. So, Tommy Robinson's locked up. He got arrested. He was tried, quote unquote, because it wasn't a trial if he's not even allowed to have his own lawyer. Arrested, charged, tried, and shipped off to jail all on the same day. Now, if you can even imagine that happening in this country, it defies the idea of due process, of having the right to know what you're charged with, to present a defense and everything else. And
it was just for him trying to cover the trials.
That's right. Just for telling the truth, just for bringing publicity to something that's real. It's not like he was making something up about these bad people. He was just notifying his fellow British citizens of what's going on in their own country if they're not aware of it. And, I was glad to hear that finally the U.S. Ambassador for International Religious Freedom, if you remember a guy named Sam Brownback, anyway, he's apparently lobbying the British ambassador to release Tommy Robinson. Of course, the Brits are holding firm on this. And there was actually there's been a number of rallies. There was one this past weekend that looked like it had maybe 2,000 to 3,000 people at it. But, you're talking about London is a city, and I don't know the numbers. I haven't looked recently, but I'm just going to make a round guess and say maybe 20 million people.
Right.
It's a huge city. And if only, 2,000 to 3,000 people are coming out to these protests, that's not going to be enough. They're not going to move because of that small of a group. So, folks, over there in the UK, we really you've got to amp these protests up if you want to get Tommy out of there and try to save your country. Because as far as I can tell, your country is on a really fast decline. It's moving away from Anglo-Saxon values in terms of common law and due process. But these were very much Anglo-Saxon values. I mean, just think back to Magna Carta. You know, that was the first thing where people basically stood up to the king. Okay, and that occurred in England. It's Anglo-Saxon common law that's given rise to a lot of the rights that we enjoy and that we consider to be our rights as American citizens. They came from England. So it's really sad to see that country on such a steep decline that they are arresting, charging, prosecuting, trying, and jailing their own citizens all in a one-day notice, by the way, with no lawyer. It's what a shame. What a shame. I mean, aren't they embarrassed? Wouldn't you? I mean, you know what? I mean, I would be embarrassed if our country was doing that to people.
Well, I think that's something that's strange is that a lot of the way that they try to perceive or show you the people who are supporters of Tommy Robinson, they try to show that those people are extremists.
That's right.
But I don't really think that's the case. I think you have some mainstream people supporting him too, and they're just supporting the freedom of speech.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? Why shouldn't he just be allowed to tell the truth? I mean, it's not. Again, he's not falsifying something. He's not doing propaganda. He's not making things up. All he's doing is bringing attention to a very real problem in the UK right now. Well, you know, we want to switch over now and talk about something really positive for our local interest story, because I was really thrilled to see this. I don't know if you caught this, but as of Friday of last week, the economy of the state of Florida has passed the $1 trillion mark. Can you believe that? $1 trillion a year.
Wow. That's amazing.
In GDP. I mean, that's pretty huge, right? In fact, if Florida was a separate, if we were our own country, thank goodness we're not, but if we were, we'd have the 17th largest economy in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia. Can you imagine that? The economy of the state of Florida is bigger than the economy of Saudi Arabia. It's supposed to be like the biggest oil producer in the whole world, right? Bigger than the economy of Argentina.
Well, obviously, some of that is tourism, so we're happy about that.
Yeah.
But we do see business booming all around. We see companies moving their headquarters here in some cases, especially to the Tampa Bay area. And it is exciting, too, when you think about, you always knock on wood, but our real estate market seems to continue to stay strong when you see other areas across the country that maybe aren't. Really?
Yeah, I know. I was looking at the real estate prices over the weekend, and I mean, they're up again, like another 5 or 10% since the last time I looked just a couple of months ago. So it does seem that things are booming. Apparently, we're adding about $2.75 billion to our state's gross domestic product every single day. And so, I mean, just think about that. I mean, that's pretty huge. That's pretty huge. Just this year, we've added 180,000 jobs through May of this year. So we probably added maybe closer to 250 if we count June and July. I mean, can you believe that? That's amazing growth. And that's something that we can all be really proud of as Floridians and really happy for that we live here. And then the only other thing I wanted to point out that came out in the same story that I just thought was interesting was the Florida Chamber of Commerce has just launched its new program, Florida 2030. The Florida 2030 initiative. So do y'all notice that everything is pointing towards 2030? Everybody's got 2030 initiatives. I just think that's interesting. I don't know what it means, except for that everybody's apparently picked 2030. Remember the Saudi Arabia 2030 initiative? And we've got the UN's got a 2030 initiative. And now we've got Florida 2030. So apparently in about 12 years, everything's going to come together, folks. If we could just hold out till 2030, all these initiatives are going to work and it'll be a perfect world.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah,
I'd like to have those. Usually it's the doomsday dates when you're looking into the future, but we have a good positive 2030 to look forward to, supposedly.
And let me tell you, in our second and third segment today, we are going to absolutely tear it up because we're going to get into the Strzok hearings. If you missed these last week, if you didn't catch them, I watched the whole thing again. And I watched it about 3 times. It is absolutely fascinating. If you thought the Rosenstein hearings were good, the Strzok hearings take it to a whole new level. And we've gone through and we've pulled out the key clips. I mean, the very tightest, most important information that was learned during that hearing for you. And we're going to cover that second and third segment. And then our Out There, you do not want to miss our Out There today because it's going to give you a giant belly laugh. And I don't want to say a ton more about it than that, except for folks, you got to hold on for this one because it is truly funny. Now, we did have a couple of short stories, and this is going to bring you back down again, but I just had to share these because they're also kind of funny. Did you hear about this guy in Dallas who, this is hilarious, all right? He's 24-year-old Jose Nahun Lopez Cruz, and he parked in Dallas in a handicapped spot.
Right.
Yeah, genius. Now, of course, he's not handicapped, and he's knocking around with his 15-year-old girlfriend, right, who he's living with as his wife, apparently. And as they're getting back into their Toyota Camry parked in the handicap spot, the police officer stops him and says, "Hey, sir, why do you park in a handicap spot? You're not handicapped." And he says, "Oh, I didn't know that it was a handicap spot." And then he says, "Well, okay, but now why do you have an open can of alcohol there in your center console?" And Jose says, "Oh, that belonged to the girl." Okay, well, how about this baggie?
She's not old enough.
Yeah, exactly. How about this baggie of marijuana, Jose? Well, the teenager copped and said, "Hey, that's his." So he had the marijuana. But anyway, they've been living together and dating and apparently having man-woman relationships on a daily basis. As he told the police, it's okay, she's going to be 16 soon. Now, are you surprised that he's an illegal alien? We'll be right back. And Jinx! Freezing.
Free Coke. Is that what it is?
Is it a free Coke?
I don't know
I
what
thought
it is.
you
You have to
couldn't
buy me a
talk.
Coke. Yep.
I'll buy you a Coke. A Coke and a smile.
Mm-hmm. We are back on the Morgan Streetman Show. I'm Roxanne Wilder. Pat George is here. So much to get through. We're going to hear... Go ahead, Morgan.
Well, I just want to tell you one more, because if you didn't like that story we left you with about Jose Lopez Cruz in Dallas, Texas, with a 15-year-old wife, but don't worry, it's okay. She's almost 16. Now, of course, they weren't legally married. But I want to tell you another story, another fun one that came out just recently about an illegal alien. This guy had been deported 11 times. In fact, they call him a serial immigration violator. Okay, 11 times he's been deported since 2005. Well, guess what he did, and this is down in the Los Angeles, San Diego type area, Southern California area.
I didn't see this story.
Whittier, California. Guess what he just did? Okay, this is a 32-year-old Alejandro Alvarez Villagas, and he just attacked his wife with a chainsaw in front of their children, aged 10 years old, 8 years old, and 5 years old, while the kids were screaming. And then, of course, hopped in a car and drove off. They've since apprehended this guy, and apparently the wife is going to be okay, because even though a chainsaw is, kind of violent, it's not one of the most effective ways to attack somebody.
You know what scares me is this happens over here when you should lay low so that you're not found out or, suspected of anything. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine what's happening in their own country?
Right.
It's very, it's brutally violent. People just disappear.
You know what else, too? I was talking with a police officer today. I was doing an interview, and he was saying just in general, crime, and he's worked in different parts of the country, too, but most crime comes from gangs within our country. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying those gangs originated in the country, but when you look at American crime, what is it? Most of it is violent crime. Most of it is gang-related.
And most of that gang stuff, I think, is drug-related,
right,
which is one of the unintended consequences that we really have from having a drug wars. We have the creation of a black market that's extremely profitable for smugglers. And so that creates all this incentive for folks who don't have other opportunities to run drugs through their neighborhoods. And, we really got to think about these kind of unintended consequences when we put certain policies in place. But I wanted to, look, I enjoyed the heck out of listening to Mason and the Sarge today, because they covered so much of what was going on over in Helsinki. They really got some great clips, and there's no way for us to do all of that justice. Of course, Trump's just finished up, as of this morning, Helsinki time, his meeting with President Putin over there in Finland. And before that, he was in London, and I don't know if you saw, he met with the Queen and went and saw some British displays of all their pomp and ceremony.
He was very impressed with the Queen, how smart and classy she is.
Yes. And, and I saw something in the paper about, Prince Philip snubbed him. He didn't show up. And that's just nonsense. Anybody that pays attention to the royals knows that Prince Philip actually retired from his royal duties last year because physically he's not able to continue to do them. He's in his mid-90s. Or maybe in his late 90s at this point. But point is, there was no snubbing going on there. It's simply the Queen is the only royal who still remains able to do those duties. Now, she could pass it on to Prince Charles or something, but that would be an insult if the Queen didn't meet with President Trump. So while she's still able to do it, she still is going to fulfill that role, just like she has now for, 60, 70 years. I don't even know how many years it's been. It's been a long time that she's been Queen.
She's hanging on to the throne. She
really is. Now, do you see what happened right before Trump got to London? A couple of very interesting things happened. One, the poor former UK ambassador was beat to basically an inch of his life.
Could not believe these
Isn't that
photos.
terrible? Isn't it terrible? This poor guy, Sir Christopher Meyer, 74 years old, again, former UK ambassador to the United States, was attacked, and they claim it's by a 15 and 16-year-old teenage boy and girl, but was attacked in Victoria Station in London. Okay, I've been there. This is a big tube station with a lot of stuff going on. He was attacked Wednesday. Now, interestingly, just hours after he published an essay, and the essay, would you believe it, said, and this is a quote, "As the former ambassador to the U.S., believe me when I say we should care what Trump thinks on his visit to London. The plain truth is that the U.S. is our single most important partner and ally, and President Trump is its democratically elected leader." Now, his wife, who's actually a baroness, said that, he basically looks terrible. His left eye looks like a golf ball. It's bleeding. You can see the pictures. It's just you can't do anything but feel terrible for the 74-year-old man who has been brutally beaten by a couple of kids. And the wife says that at first she thought the attack was politically motivated. You don't think so, do you? But the police have told her that they believe it was more likely that it was a robbery, even though nothing was taken. Familiar story, right? It's always a robbery, whether it be Seth Rich or somebody else. Don't worry if anything's actually taken. That was a robbery. But the other interesting thing that happened right before Trump went through his meetings, he was already there when this happened, but was Rod Rosenstein came out with the indictment of 12 Russian spies. And we heard all about that. And finally, now we see some progress from the Mueller case. But it's such a bunch of malarkey for so many reasons. The main one that you need to think about is where is the DNC server and why has the FBI never taken control of the DNC server, which, if it was hacked, is evidence. Okay, why haven't they taken control of the DNC server? One, because Democrats won't give it to them. Why is that? Because there's no evidence of hacking on it, okay? And they so much as admit this when they admit that it was through spear phishing that access was gained to the DNC emails. But
and what's spear phishing?
Spear phishing is where you send an email that looks legitimate, but it's actually not. And so it might say, hey.
It's a phishing email. Okay.
Yeah, so it might say, hey, Wells Fargo customer, you need to log in and update your password because it's been too many days since you've updated your password. Mm-hmm. Click this link to log in. And you click the link, and it looks like Wells Fargo, and you go there and you put in your name and password and everything, and you update your password, and you think, okay, everything's done. But you didn't actually go to Wells Fargo. You went to some hacker site, and you gave them your name and password. Then they went to Wells Fargo on their own and changed your password. Yeah, that's the way spear phishing works. So anyway, but we got to get into these clips, or we're not going to make it through, because we have got some fascinating clips from the Strzok hearings. And this is, to me, this is the most bombshell information that's come out in quite some time. I found these hearings fascinating, and there's so much of it that I want to share with you, but I really had to make some cuts. So let's just jump into one of them, okay? This is Representative Darrell Issa of California. Now, he really grills Agent Peter Strzok, and one interesting thing we learn is that Agent Strzok alone is allowed to decide what text messages he will or will not make available to turn over. He says he's not turned over any of the messages from his personal phone. In other words, he's claiming that they are all personal. And when you hear what he says on his FBI phone, you can only imagine what he would be saying on his personal phone. OMG.
So far, only you have determined what should be turned over from your private emails or your non-government emails and text, what should be delivered because it was government in nature. You've made that decision.
That's right.
And it's your position that nobody else in the way of a government entity should be able to look over your shoulder, so to speak, and make that decision.
That's right.
So you think it's okay for the target, and you are a target, of an investigation to determine what should be delivered rather than, if you will, the government, right?
Sir, I'm not aware of any investigation of which I'm a target.
Well, you're a target of our investigation. We think that you had a bias and you acted on it, and that's made pretty clear. So I'm going to just ask one series of questions very quickly, if I could. You did a number of texts. All of the texts that are presented to us, as far as I know, came from your government phone, correct?
I believe that to be the case, yes.
So you've made no text available from your private phone, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever text on your private phone?
I did.
Did you ever text Lisa Page on your private phone?
I did.
Did you ever text Lisa Page on your private phone similar text to the ones you did on your government phone?
By similar, you mean what?
Commenting on Mr. Trump or Hillary Clinton or anything else political in nature.
I don't specifically recall, but it's probably a safe assumption that yes,
So
I did.
it's likely that they'd be similar.
It's a safe assumption. I don't.
So your personal phone has likely similar text to the ones that we found on your government phone. That's correct?
I would say it has similar expressions of personal belief. Yes.
Okay, so in front of you have a one sheet of paper that was presented to you a few minutes ago, and I'm going to just go to a date and then ask you to read your own words. March 4th, 2016.
You want me to read this?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. OMG, he's an idiot.
May 4th, 2016.
Now the pressure really starts to finish MYE.
July 19th, 2016.
Hi, how was Trump other than a Melania?
July 21st, 2016.
Trump is a disaster. I have no idea how destabilizing his presidency would be.
August 6th, 2016.
I don't believe I wrote this text, sir.
Okay, it's been attributed to you, so we'll go on to the next.
Incorrect.
August 8th, 2016.
Again.
And I'll preface it by saying this for context. Ms. Page said, not ever going to become president, right? Right?
No, he's not. We'll stop it.
Repeat that again.
No, he's not. We'll stop it.
August 15th, 2016.
I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40.
On October 20th, 2016.
I can't pull away and I defer to the chairman whether
You
or
can
not
just
he'd
use
like me
one
to
letter if
profanity.
you don't mind.
What the F happened to our country, Lise?
Okay, read it again that way.
Sir, did you not, was
No,
it not
I just wanted to
intelligible?
hear it
You
one
just
more
want to
time.
hear it for
Yeah.
me to repeat it?
Please.
Okay, sir. Sure. Happy to indulge you.
And welcome back to the Morgan Streetman Show. Hey, did you catch that right before the break? I mean, the timing on that was impeccable, Pat George. Nice job. But if you didn't catch that, Agent Strzok apparently thinks it's appropriate to get sarcastic with his boss, Congressman Darrell Issa, saying I'm happy to indulge you, sir.
He's very brazen.
Yeah, he's such an elitist snake that he can't even control his sanctimonious sarcasm, even though he's the one who's lying to everyone's face. And he's doing it with a straight face. And we're going to hear more about that later. But I'll tell you what it looks like to me. It's gall. It's the death of shame. The man has no shame. Now, the next clip we want to run for you, this is Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio, and he really starts laying into Strzok as well. And I think the most important thing that came out of the hearings is the little nugget that ends up coming out of Jim Jordan's questioning, which is that the FBI actually got the dossier from Fusion GPS through Nellie Orr, through her husband, DOJ second in command or whatever he was at the time, Bruce Orr, and he gave it to the FBI. Listen to the clip.
Sir, you're going to love this, and it's going to upset the vote. I have been instructed that the FBI has now told me that I can answer questions about the receipt of the document. So I will defer, Mr. Chairman, if you would like to hear that or take your vote.
The gentleman may proceed with his questions, and you may answer.
May I confer with counsel briefly to see if this is completely unbounded or if there are any limitations on what I may say?
Well, I got a lot of questions I've asked all day long.
Let's ask the one you've been told you can answer.
All right, so let's hear the answer to this one.
Which question, sir?
The one that's on the table about the documents.
Which
So
question?
the documents we received from a different source in the initial batch in mid-September.
Wait. No. I'm not understanding. You said you got go back. Did you get documents from Bruce Orr?
Yes. At some point, we received material from Mr. Orr.
You got documents from Bruce Orr. And what were those documents?
We received documents from Mr. Orr, not me.
And he's talking to his lawyer now, the FBI lawyer. Don't mind us just conferring here.
I can maybe make it simpler. Agent Strzok, was it the dossier?
Sir, what I am authorized to tell you, in response to a question, did you receive any documents from Bruce Orr, the FBI has directed me that I may say, not me, the FBI received documents and material from Mr. Orr.
Did you? I appreciate
sir.
that. I appreciate that. But you
No.
did not from Mr. Orr.
No.
Okay. But the FBI did get documents from Bruce Orr.
Yes, sir.
Did they get the dossier from Bruce Orr?
My direction from the FBI, as I may tell you, the FBI received material from Mr. Orr.
Now, this
Congressman,
this is amazing. This is amazing. So Nellie Orr,
as you are.
Nellie Orr works for Fusion, works for Glenn Simpson, and she's giving documents.
Regular
to
order,
Orr,
please.
who's
Let
then
us bring
giving
the
them to
director of the FBI to answer those questions. The gentleman cannot answer.
Well,
He's asked and answered.
Sheila Jackson Lee for you
Asked
folks.
and answered. He cannot answer.
The gentlewoman.
Let's have Director
the regular order
I
is.
understand, Mr. Chairman. Regular order.
The FBI has now instructed Mr. Strzok that he can answer additional questions, and Mr.
Agent Strzok, I asked him other
has
questions.
additional time to get the answers to those
He
questions
is
that he
going
earlier
beyond
was
the
stored
scope
and
of
didn't
what
get
the
it.
FBI approved.
Has the FBI also given you permission to say if Glenn Simpson is the name that you use when in the email where you say Simpson?
I don't believe they have given me guidance. My most recent understanding of my guidance from the FBI is in response to the question of whether the FBI received documents from
Has the
Mr.
FBI
Orr.
given you,
The answer is that yes, we did, and
has
that
the
is all
FBI
I'm
given
authorized
you,
to
has
say.
the FBI given you information to tell me whether you knew Nellie Orr worked for Fusion at the time you were meeting with her husband?
Sir, to my knowledge, the FBI has not directed me to or allow me to respond to that.
Did you catch that? In the fray, Agent Strzok reveals that the FBI first received the dossier on September 15th of 2016 from sources other than Bruce Orr, but that the FBI also received documents and materials from Bruce Orr. Now, if you noticed, he never said that they got the dossier from Bruce Orr, and so thankfully Jim Jordan didn't give up.
Did not personally receive documents from Mr. Orr, but the FBI did. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you also said the FBI got documents from a different source in mid-September. Different source than whom?
Different source from Mr. Orr. It was not Mr. Orr who provided the initial documents that I became aware of in mid-September.
So Mr. Orr did not hand you the dossier?
Mr. Orr didn't hand me anything. Mr.
FBI.
Orr provided information to the FBI that included material that is what everybody's calling the dossier. Reporting from Mr. Steele.
Say that again. Say that sentence again. Mr. Orr provided what?
He provided some elements of reporting that my understanding is originated from Mr. Steele.
So Bruce Orr did give the FBI information relative to the dossier?
Yes.
Wow. That's a bombshell. That is an absolute bombshell. The only thing that remains to be established is for everybody to admit that they knew that Bruce Orr's wife, Nellie Orr, was working for Fusion GPS and Glenn Simpson. And, of course, that is proved by the very email that Jim Jordan is referencing there in Peter Strzok's own words that they got a dossier from Simpson. Okay? Who do you think that came through? You think that might have come through Nellie Orr and then to Bruce Orr? That's exactly what Jim Jordan established, and that's a bombshell for this scandal.
And let's think about Peter and just remember that his job is to uphold law enforcement for our national government. Is he doing a good job of that?
Well, I mean, that's his job description, right?
That's what I
think
mean.
he probably understands his job very much differently than that. It seems to him to be very personal. His job is about him saving the world, protecting everybody from themselves, etc. So it really is a job about he's in charge of everything. You know, there were so many great questionings, and there were only a couple of real nuggets that came out, and that's what we're covering for you here. And so far, we've hit two of them. One of them is that Peter Strzok gets to decide himself what documents he's going to turn over, and nobody looks over his shoulder. So you can only imagine what's on his personal phone. The other one is that the dossier came through Nellie Orr to Bruce Orr to the FBI, okay, after mid-September. Now, another questioning, this is another great issue that I thought was just, this is huge. And I got to say, Representative Louie Gohmert of Texas is so awesome. He's on my list of favorite congressmen. I mean, he calls it like few others can call it. And, of course, since he was a felony hanging judge in Texas for many years, he knows exactly what he's talking about when it comes to witness bias. Now, some of you may have heard that Representative Gohmert locked horns with Agent Strzok during testimony, and he certainly did. And we're going to get to that in a bit. But before we go there, I really wanted to share this very important point with you that Congressman Gohmert made with Agent Strzok, and it's one a lot of folks missed. Roll that. Speaking of missing.
You said earlier in this hearing you were concerned about a hostile foreign power affecting our election. Do you recall the Intelligence Community Inspector General, Chuck McCulloch, having an investigation into an anomaly found on Hillary Clinton's emails?
I do not.
Well, let me refresh your recollection. The intelligence community, Inspector General Chuck McCulloch, sent his investigator, Frank Rucker, along with an IG attorney, Jeanette McMillan, to brief you and Dean Chappelle and 2 other FBI personnel that I won't name at this time about an anomaly they had found on Hillary Clinton's emails that were going to and from the private unauthorized server that you were supposed to be investigating. Now, do you remember it?
I remember meeting Mr. Rucker on either 1 or 2 occasions. I do not remember the specific content or discussions.
Well, I'll help you with that too then. Mr. Rucker reported to those of you, the 4 of you there, in the presence of the IG attorney, that they had found this anomaly on Hillary Clinton's emails going through her private server. And when they had done the forensic analysis, they found that her emails, every single one except for 4, over 30,000 of them, were going to an address that was not on the distribution list. It was a compartmentalized bit of information that was sending it to an unauthorized source. Do you recall that?
Sir, I don't.
Wow. I mean, did you miss that? The FBI actually did have confirmation that Hillary Clinton's homebrew email server was compromised by a foreign government, and her emails were all, 30,000 of them, were forwarded to this foreign government. Now, it wasn't Russia, okay, but that doesn't make it any less treasonable. And it was reported to Peter Strzok, and what did he do? Absolutely nothing. So did he really care about protecting this country from foreign influence or not? I mean, he claims he can't remember. And what would we expect a weasel to say in that situation, okay? He says he met with the guy, and the documentary evidence proved that it happened. So you have to decide, folks, you be the judge. Did Peter Strzok really care about protecting the country from foreign influence, or did he just want to find an insurance policy to sink candidate Trump? And I think you know the answer to that. Now, here is the clip coming up that we've been promising you. And, folks, this is a granddaddy. I mean, this is probably one of the finest clips that I've heard in a long time. And it's basically just the bulldog, Louie Gohmert, completely unchained. We could have shortened this and cut out some of the Democrat activity. And you have to bear in mind that nobody actually taught them manners when they were younger. So you'll be hearing quite a bit of interrupting and rudeness from them. But I think it kind of gives the flavor of the full hearing. So without further ado, Texas Congressman Louie Gohmert calls it like it is.
Let me tell you, when you have text messages, Mr. Strzok, the way you do, saying the things you did, you'd been better off coming in here and say, look, that was my bias. And you kind of get around to that a little bit when you say, hey, everybody's got political views. Those are called biases, and we all have them. And you have come in here and said, I had no bias. And you do it with a straight face. And I watched you in the private testimony you gave. And I told some of the other guys, he is really good. He's lying. He knows, we know he's lying. And he could probably pass a polygraph. It's amazing.
Mr. Chairman.
No, this is my
Mr.
time,
Chairman, I'm sorry. Point of order. This point of order.
No.
The gentleman will state his point of order.
A member of this committee just asserted that this witness, who is under oath and a former agent of the FBI, lied. There is no evidence that I ask him to withdraw.
My goodness.
I do not withdraw it. He is not a member of Congress. It's not a violation of the rule. And just as you have been expressing bias through your members about what a hero
there is not a single person on this committee who has ever characterized a witness
gentleman
as
from
lying.
Rhode Island.
Gentlemen, it's my time.
That's a disgrace.
Gentleman from Rhode Island will suspend.
No, the disgrace
Mr.
is what this man has done.
The gentleman from Texas will suspend for a moment.
There is the disgrace. And it won't be recaptured anytime soon because of the damage you've done to the justice system. And I've talked to FBI agents around the country. You've embarrassed them. You've embarrassed yourself. And I can't help but wonder when I see you looking there with a little smirk, how many times did you look so innocent into your wife's eye and lie to her about Lisa?
Mr. Chairman.
Oh!
Shame on you,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, please.
Have you, Mr. Chairman, this is intolerable harassment of the witness.
What's wrong with that? You need your medication.
Welcome back. Time to go out there. Morgan Streetman is here. I'm Roxanne Wilder, and we are going through all these clips from the interrogation of Peter Strzok. And I love how Louie Gohmert of Texas is just giving it to him, lays down the hammer like, is that how you lied to your wife when you were really with Lisa Page? I mean, then
just
you have
lit him up.
Bonnie Coleman, who's having an absolute attack because of that.
Oh, man, she's having a conniption fit. She says, do you need your medication? Now, Bonnie Watson-Coleman is the gentle lady from New Jersey. And, folks, I struggled on what to do for the Out There this week, and then it just hit me. The Out There just simply needs to be Bonnie Watson-Coleman's questioning of Agent Peter Strzok, because this one is so full of out there statements. You're going to love it, folks. Let's roll it. Pat?
You're recognized, Congresswoman. You're recognized.
When she finishes.
Well, hallelujah. First of all, Mr. Strzok, I want to thank you for your service. Secondly, Mr. Strzok, I think you made a big mistake by putting those text messages on your business phone, because then you opened up your personal phone, and here we are talking about this mess when it really isn't important. Because the other thing that I know, Mr. Strzok, is that even if you do have biases, you did not influence the outcome of this investigation. The IG found that the outcome of this investigation was predicated upon evidence and information. The other thing I know is that no matter how much you disliked Hillary and or Donald Trump, you didn't have anything to do with either one of them getting elected. You have nothing to do with the President of the United States disgracing this country every single solitary day when he embraces our enemies and sucks up, embraces our enemies and is disrespectful to our allies. You have nothing to do with the fact that the President of the United States has declared higher tariffs in the name of security to this nation against our closest friend and neighbor, Canada, but no one on this side of the aisle has opened their mouth. You have had nothing to do with the president enriching himself with his emoluments and carving out opportunities for his daughter so that she's not negatively impacted with her brands in China, while this side of the aisle says nothing. You've had nothing to do with the fact that Puerto Rico is still underwater and without any kind of electricity in so many places, while this side of the aisle, that's a part of the Oversight Committee, has forgotten what its mission is. But nonetheless, you have been here and you have tried to answer their questions. And I have never seen my colleagues so out of control, so angry, and so desperate to protect a president that we all know is not fit to be president. So I want to leave you this opportunity. Is there any question on the table, Mr. Strzok, that you've been asked that you'd like to clarify? Because I can give you 2 minutes and 25 seconds to have your say uninterrupted.
Wow, 2 minutes and 25 seconds?
Congresswoman, I deeply appreciate that time. I do want, everybody's watching this and making up their own mind. And what I would tell you is, one, I'm sitting here telling you the truth.
I promise.
And two, independent of me, I cannot express to you my love of the FBI enough. The men and women who make up that workforce, their ethics, their integrity are unmatched anywhere in the world. And I think that's important, one, because it is who we are. Two, that none of them would accept any of the behaviors that are being alleged any more than I would accept it in him. And three, this entire exercise comes at a cost. We are doing things that are going to, in the future, tear down the underpinnings of what represent law and order in this country. And there is not a robust, thick wall there. I think people don't appreciate how tenuous the balance of the rule of law versus chaos is. And when we as a people engage in activity where we take institutions wholesale, whether it's the FBI or the U.S. intelligence community, and compare them to Nazis, we destroy things that, one, we may not see for years and years and years. And once we break those down, the amount of time it takes to fix is going to be tenfold. And I cannot stress enough that I ask all of you to take deeply your responsibility to maintain our system of
Thank you,
government.
Mr. Strzok. I just need to say in closing, if anybody should be pissed at the FBI because you all helped this unfit man become president of the United States by not revealing to the people that he was under investigation in his campaign, it should be me. They should be applauding you, kissing you, and giving you all awards, because but for you, we would have had a legitimate president elected. I yield back my time. First of all, Mr. Strzok, I want to thank you for your service. The other thing I know is that no matter how much you disliked Hillary and or Donald Trump, you didn't have anything to do with either one of them getting elected. Thank you, Mr. Strzok. I just need to say in closing, if anybody should be pissed at the FBI because you all helped this unfit man become president of the United States by not revealing to the people that he was under investigation in his campaign, it should be me.
And now you see I've gone completely out of my mind. And they're coming to take me away, ha-ha. They're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha. To the funny farm where life is beautiful all the time. And I'll be happy to see those nice young men in their clean white coats. And they're coming to take me away, ha-ha.
And they really should take Bonnie Watson-Coleman away, because the lady's clearly crazy. She's all over the board. And she's yelling at Louie Gohmert about forgetting to take his medication? Are you kidding me?
Morgan, I like how you put all that together so we can see the parallels of what she said at the beginning and then what she said at the end totally contradicted themselves.
Yeah, because she doesn't even know what's the words that are coming out of her mouth. They have real meaning. They should mean things in the dictionary that we could all agree on. But to her, it's just chatter, just talk. And boy, I tell you what, if we got any listeners up in New Jersey, if you ever needed a better advertisement to pick up and move from New Jersey to Florida, my goodness, that's got to be it right there. You're surrounded by people who voted for this lady. They voted for Bonnie Watson-Coleman. Do you hear how insane she is? She's completely insane. Those are your neighbors. Those are your friends. I don't get it. Come to Florida. At least we got some sanity down here in Florida. We got Congressman Matt Gaetz. We got a booming economy. We got at least some sanity. People aren't all totally crazy, although there are a lot of crazy Floridians, as we've certainly covered on this show before. Well, folks, that's just been too much fun. I hope you enjoyed this rundown of the Peter Strzok hearings. You don't have to watch them now because we covered the best stuff on this show. You just got the complete rundown of the very best nuggets that came out of those hearings. I can't wait to see you next week, folks. I'm Morgan Streetman, and that's the way I see it.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were those of Morgan Streetman and are not those of Beasley Media Group, this station, its management, or other hosts or advertisers.
Tampa Bay's business address is Money Talk 1010 AM and available on HD at 99.5 HD2. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Money Talk 1010 AM. Tampa Bay's business address.